We're fine.
We are recording.
Right. Do your report, Glenn?
Let's see. Pretty busy week. Not a lot of financial stuff, but we did meet with the railroad and the engineering firm about the trail, and that really didn't go as anticipated. We had previously had discussions with the railroad about realigning the tracks, and they were in complete favor of realigning the tracks. Then when we got into this meeting and the firm that's working on the design spoke about realigning the tracks, they acted as though we had never had that conversation, and they were completely opposed to realigning the tracks except for one little section of track. So it kind of derailed the whole plan of realigning the tracks and running the trail along the tracks all the way up to Beals Ave. So they're going to look at, the firm is going to look at the potential for just realigning the tracks where the railroad is willing to accept the concept of realigning the tracks, and then see if there's enough room to make the trail go along the tracks the remainder of the way through Beals Ave.
So what do you mean by realigning the tracks? Like literally
So-
moving them?
Yeah, so as they come around the corner from, at Beals Ave, basically, there's actually a second set of tracks that's closer to Beals Ave than it is to High Street, and so the firm was talking about realigning that curve and bringing the tracks onto the second set of tracks, the one that's closer to the woods and further away from High Street, which would give much more space for the trail to come along the High Street side of the railroad tracks, and then bringing the tracks back to go alongside the community building, whatever, I can't think of it.
Yeah.
Where they currently are. And so when they brought that up to the railroad went bananas and was like, well, no, we never, that's not at all what we talked about. They only talked about moving the tracks, realigning the tracks closer to the woods in a small section closer to the community building.
What was their reasoning
The reason for realigning the tracks,
for not wanting to?
they just basically think that it's too much work and too much money, and they don't think it's necessary. But the point that the firm was trying to make is, if we don't move the tracks towards the woods, when you get to the Beals Avenue area, it's really tight. So that retaining wall that's there, you have sidewalk, then you have retaining wall, then you have, probably 8 or 10 feet of grassy, dirty, gravel before you hit the railroad tracks right there at Beals Ave.
Yeah.
And you need, with a fence, I think you need 10 feet of separation with the, from the trail and the railroad tracks.
15 feet from the center of the rig.
With the fence, or is it 10 feet with a fence?
15 feet for the fence, and then the path is 10 feet.
Okay, yeah. So it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we mentioned when we met, because Jana and I think Elena was the planner then, we all met with the railroad out there, and the section of tracks that they're talking about moving, relocating further back, it's very, that section is very close to the crumbling retaining wall that's behind Cadillac Mountain Sports and the section that used to be Irving, that vacant lot that used to be Irving. So it's very much to their benefit for if the trail project moves those tracks and rebuilds that retaining wall, because literally the retaining wall is crumbling and the tracks are so close that at some point they're going to be, their integrity is going to be in question based on the, deteriorating retaining wall. So that was kind of their motivation to agree to setting the tracks back, you know, not a lot, like, I don't know, maybe 5 feet or something like that. So it kind of, anyway, it just kind of threw a wall up in the process. So
That's too bad.
the firm was going to go back and do some measuring and look at options, and they were going to meet actually sometime after the Thanksgiving holiday, meet out there. I think Jana and I will go, and also the railroad and the firm will send their representatives out there to see, so we can see and take some measurements exactly what the railroad's idea is and whether we can make that work or not. But essentially, I think what's going to have to happen is for the trail to stay on that side of the tracks, which is what everyone would prefer because it eliminates the need for another crossing of the tracks. It's going to need basically a whole rebuild of that retaining wall from Cadillac Mountain all the way up through to Beals Ave, including that one that runs along High Street,
Wow, really?
in order to give you the space that
Yeah.
you need. The one on High Street, I think, would, because that's fairly new, so I think that one could be utilized, but it's going to have to be built up because you're going to have to, because you know how it starts lower and then it comes up higher and then it goes
Yeah.
down lower again. Well, the whole retaining wall is going to have to be up, so that up basically to the track level, so you're you know, flat coming across to create that, you know, that space and to be able to create the trail. So, which obviously is pretty expensive. So.
Retaining walls are usually the most expensive
Yeah.
part of a
Yeah.
It
project.
is.
So DOT was on the call, and of course DOT owns the whole shooting match as far as the tracks go. So depending on, depending on their attitude towards it, they could also dictate to some degree to the railroad what's going to happen. So we'll see, but it was just a little bit unanticipated because it wasn't what we expected the conversation to go like. So doing a lot of interviews, we filled a bunch of positions, 2 positions at Public Works, at wastewater have been filled, and we have a second interview with a code enforcement officer today that I think we will probably be offering the position to. We have a few candidates for the deputy code position, which we have put off interviewing until we get the code officer in place, figuring it would be best for that person to be involved in that interview process since they're going to be working so closely together. So we have Lori till May, so we have plenty of time for those individuals to get trained under her. And the next couple of months are pretty slow in code with not a lot of, construction stuff going on as it gets colder in winter. We filled one of the vacancies in the finance department, and I think that's all we have right now for vacancies. So just the code office is the only one that and the deputy finance are the only 2 that we're actively pursuing. We have been advertising for a city engineer, but haven't had any applicants whatsoever. So at some point, we'll probably have to take a look at that and decide what's the best course of action to go with. Currently, right now, things are going relatively well, and myself and the 3 department heads for the Public Works are all actively involved in all of the projects and the funding and monitoring the progress of the projects. We've got one coming forward next week at the council meeting for the Red Bridge Road culvert that Adam's been on top of, that we're been working with Ann and working on funding sources for that. We have some ideas for that. Jan has also been assisting with a lot of those projects and the funding. And of course, Woodard and Kern is intimately involved in all of those projects, so they're a great resource for us. And the High Street pump station is ready to go out to bid. Probably December they'll put that out to bid. Water Street pump station is pretty much complete. There's a few small tasks that need to be done, but it's pretty much complete. and that actually came in under budget, which is fantastic. Hopefully High Street will do the same, but that project is almost exclusively funded through the congressional spending, so, for the High Street pump station. So that one will be going out to bid next month, and hopefully we'll get that one rolling in the springtime. Red Bridge Road culvert came in higher than originally expected, but not higher than what we expected once the engineering was completed. Andrew McCullough's been working very closely with myself and Adam on that, and they we had 2 bids, so I think the lower of the 2 bids is who we're recommending, which is a local company, so it's a good thing. And we have a lot of the money already budgeted in local roads. We have 1 grant already, and we'll be pursuing additional grant funding, and then looking for some future local roads funds to complete the project. That project has to be done between July and September because of the fish issue. So the bid is for that to be completed this summer. The main thing with that project is, aside from just the integrity of the road, since the culvert's crumbling, is that the DOT has already placed a weight limit on the road, and if we don't get the culvert done in a timely fashion, well, one, we have grant funds, which we'd have to extend again, but that's another issue altogether. But they're going to reduce the load on that road even further, which will prevent it from being an accessible road for most anything other than light cars and trucks. So critical that we get that done. We're still waiting on final design, engineering and design on the dam. I've been in touch with GEI, and they haven't been terribly responsive. They still haven't completed or provided us the inundation mapping that they were most recently working on, which is what they needed in order to complete their design. So still working on that, still waiting on that. But hopefully we can get something by the beginning of the new year. Would be wonderful. Paychecks is, the last 2 days we spent time training all the staff on how to use the timekeeping component of Paychecks. The training went relatively well. The program is very simple to use. It's very user friendly, so it doesn't take a lot of brain power to work your way through it. So we're working with Paychecks now to make sure that all the different pay codes and all that's, particularly for agency departments outside of City Hall, police, fire, and public works, that all the different pay codes and everything are going to be in there for our employees, so when they go in, they won't have an issue with, not being able to find what they need in order to put in their time. So the plan right now is for everyone to start to input their time in that timekeeping on Monday for next week, and by January 1, the expectation is that everyone will be using it exclusively, and there will be no exceptions for payroll. So if somebody, the staff has been advised, if you mess up your payroll or you forget something and you forget your overtime and your payroll gets submitted by your manager to HR, and once it gets sent off to Paychecks, there will be no revisions, so that will have to go on the next week's pay period. There's just no option. Like for years, and Tammy, you certainly know, for years, if somebody missed something or forgot something, we bent over backwards to accommodate them. But it's just become too cumbersome. Our payroll has just become too difficult to manage, time-consuming, extreme liabilities over the years for different errors that have been made with filing of things, and so it's just. And I think for the most part, I've spoken to each group prior to the training, and I think for the most part they've been receptive to the idea that it's just the way of the future. Everything's electronic, everything's online, and the day of writing out your time on paper and submitting it is long past
Yeah,
overdue,
so
so.
antiquated.
So
Use a
I
cell
think,
phone, you can put your paychecks, how your time ends,
yeah,
so.
yeah, and it's, again, it's a very simple, process to use. It's on, they have access to it on their phone, so there's no excuse, and, management team is, has been instructed, and they also understand the expectation that, it's first and foremost, the responsibility is on the employee. It's their responsibility to get their time in and to do it correctly, and if they don't, they have no one to blame but themselves. But it's, secondary, it's the responsibility of the manager, before they submit it to HR to be submitted to paychecks, it's their responsibility to go through and make sure everybody's, signed off on their time and that the time looks appropriate, so. And the management team seems well prepared and ready to do that. So I think, knock on wood, outside of some issues with paychecks themselves, I think everything's in a good place to get that transition and get that started, so.
The place that we have is, we go to do the payroll and someone hasn't put their payroll in, hasn't submitted it, because they've been on vacation. And then you have to go try to chase them down and or
Yeah.
have someone figure out what they worked.
The one good thing about paychecks that can prevent that is you can put you can go in and you can put your work week in for weeks out, for months out. So if you work a Monday through Friday type of job and never work overtime, you can go in at the beginning of the month and you can put your whole month's worth of pay in, and then the only thing you'd have to do weekly is go in and submit it.
Yeah.
And
I
a
wonder if they do that
manager,
with ours.
can submit it for you.
You guys, if you have a exempt employee, they still have to put their time in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have to do that.
Yeah. Currently with Time Clock, we don't. It's pre-populated for us.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is just go in and approve the week. And you can approve weeks in advance.
Yeah.
But with this time, you actually have to go in and put it in. So,
I'd be one of those ones that would never remember to put my time in.
I think that is pretty much all I have really that's financial driven. Oh, auctions on the vehicles, stuff, no more than just vehicles. So hopefully we can get that added. That was an oversight both on Tony's part and mine, 'cause I didn't notice it when she sent out the agenda. But not a lot of money. But most of what we had up there didn't really have a lot of value. One cruiser, I think, was the highest of all the vehicles, and it was like 4,000. But both the cruisers have mechanical issues that are up there. All the pickups have mechanical issues. There's two items that we had put out to bid that we aren't accepting the bids on, because the highest bids were really not legitimate bids. One was the old PD truck. The highest bid was $1,000, and that vehicle's worth well more than $1,000. And the other one is the old Public Works dump truck. And that one, the high bid was like $600, and Adam's like, I can get way more than that just scrapping it. So he's like, so we're gonna deny those two bids, but all the other bids were reasonable, so we're
Do we
accepting.
ever put any minimum bids on those?
We did put minimum
You
bids.
did, and they still didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, they didn't
So
even-
there's your out too.
Yeah, yeah, so,
Hmm.
You moved away from the, what was it, gov.com or gov auctions? Or
Yeah, I know.
we did this time with these just because none of them had any real value. I mean, if we had something that had value, we would have gone with Dove.com, but these are all, like I said, both cruisers have well over 100,000 miles on them, and they both have, significant costly repairs that are needed to them. The pickup trucks that are up there, other than the PD one, both of those pickup trucks, the Public Works one I don't even think is running. The other one is running. It's actually a decent truck. It's only 2-wheel drive, but it's got transmission issues. The loader that they have up there doesn't even run. They couldn't even put that up front because they couldn't get it to run. So I mean, it's just basically a bunch of junk that's been sitting around that we finally just decided to get rid of. The patch trailer doesn't heat. and has like a hole in it. That's why they, you know, got a new one. You know, it's just a bunch of stuff. If we had public works equipment that had value, then we would probably go with gov.com. Future cruisers and other cars will probably go through, if we continue leasing, we'll probably go through the lease program and they'll sell them for us.
So what are you gonna do with that PD truck that you're gonna decline?
So we're gonna hold on to it and just park it for the winter, and then in the spring, I think we're gonna have another cruiser, that truck, and after winter, Adam's gonna have another plow truck, a big plow truck. We're hanging on to it for the winter as a spare, but after the winter, he's gonna have that to put up for auction. So we'll do another smaller auction in the spring with those 3 vehicles. And all of those vehicles will have significant more value than what was out there this time. So we'll put higher minimum bids and hope to get a little bit more revenue out of them. Yeah, because the thing about that old PD truck is it's not roadworthy at this particular time. It's going to need some effort to get it to be roadworthy. It's got mostly just body issues from rust. So we won't be driving it, but we'll park it for the winter and then break it out in the springtime to bid. So, and that definitely is all I have for financial stuff.
I wanted to go, I'm trying to find the agenda. 'Cause there's a couple of things on there I want, here it is right there. I wanted to ask about.
I had one yesterday, but I don't think
I got it right here. The least is that Juniper Cemetery thing.
Oh, yeah.
Red Ridge Road culvert, we already knew about that. So the grants from the, so there's the Community Resilience Partnership Grant Program. There's no required matching funds associated with this grant award, and the scope of the grant is to fund an evaluation of Ellis pedestrian Michael. So that's nothing that, bicycle, transportation. So there's nothing in there that's just an ongoing project that we're looking at.
Yeah, that's the, so we utilize that grant funding to support the next agenda item, which is the VPI or not VPI.
Partner Initiative Planning Phase.
Yes.
Village Partnership.
Village Partnership Initiative, so it is VPI, with DOT.
Okay.
And that involves, so that's, so the VPI is, it's really a large-scale look at more than just the downtown and the walkability and the pedestrian safety through DOT, and it includes beautification and all kinds of, it's not just sidewalks.
It's not just
It's a
sidewalks.
whole bunch of components to it, and I think I can't, it's been a while since we met with DOT about it, but we were able to set the parameters for the village, what we considered the village, and it extends beyond Main Street. And so kind of the concept was a way to, through this VPI program and DOT, to get funding to be able to kind of tie in the downtown and pedestrian throughout, the extended downtown, working into these communities,
It must be almost the urban compact.
Well, it doesn't go quite that far because we didn't include High Street,
Oh.
well, all of High Street, because they have other projects for High Street coming up this year with the paving and so forth. But it was a way to try to tie the trail into this side of High Street, essentially.
Oh, okay.
So that's what kind of we were looking at with the VPI, is where we can make connective routes to the trail, to the lower end of town, below High Street. So this neighborhood all behind here, the neighborhood, Pine Street and Elm Street, and all of the neighborhoods in behind that side of Main Street. So, and kind of tying them all together to make it more walkable. Water Street, you know, the Harbor Park, to make it all more walkable and safer for pedestrians and kind of connected, because right now it's kind of disconnected. So so that was kind of the ultimate goal of the VPI, and this resiliency funding will help that kind of get kicked off.
So it's asking for a 50% local match from the Community Resilience Partnership Grant, which is the one that we did up there, right?
Yeah.
And then up to $10,000 from local roads,
Yeah.
and then 15,000 for the TIF.
from TIF, yeah.
So the total, and that's our 50% match?
Yes. And Jana will
Jana will
be
go
there,
over
and
that.
she'll have much more information about it. Jana and Matt both.
Okay. This is the only bad thing about this, is that we don't get our packets till the weekend, and it's hard to understand what's going on beforehand. The cemetery. So can you tell us what it is that it means to take care of and the maintenance, and how we're gonna pay for it, and who's gonna be the sexton and all of that stuff? Is that all gonna be in the packet?
I mean, they gave it to us. We already have their money. Mark's offered to be sexton. I've heard it discussed. No one's ever actually asked me about it. So I don't really know what our obligation is. I know that our obligation to maintain veterans in the cemetery is our legal obligation. But the complications have been that I've had people coming to City Hall who want to bury their loved ones, and they're coming here looking for answers that I don't have. I have all the documents, everything that these people turned over to us for the cemetery. We've held their reserve for a long time, and now we have their operating fund that's at TD Bank. That's pretty much everything that I know about it. That was something that Christina worked on. She left me her files, but again, we've been looking for some direction since the summer, and
So my own, I mean, it's an open cemetery, so
Yeah.
you can't just take it over and then say, yes, you can bury people, because there should be a map of who owns what lots.
there is.
And there's decisions on, are we going to, other than the lots, are we gonna sell more lots? Or are we gonna close it and just leave it at that? Thank you for being sexted, but, I mean, the care and maintenance I get, because we are required to take care of that with the veterans and things like that, but I am so not comfortable just saying, yes, I'm going to do this with absolutely no plan. And we can't, in front of the public, say, when you've got counselors that are gonna ask questions, and you've got two brand-new counselors that are gonna be asking questions, and say, well, I don't know, I don't know. We were given this months ago, and we still don't know what we're going to do with it, how we're going to handle it, I just am worried about that.
So the problem, well, I mean, I guess the problem from our perspective is we've tried to work with the previous board, and the woman who was in charge is basically just essentially, for lack of a better term, just abandoned it, and will have
Well,
nothing.
she's quite ill.
Yeah,
She has
she's
a pretty
elderly,
serious.
and nobody who has any ties to the current cemetery,
Is alive.
i.e. their loved ones there, is either alive or has any desire or interest in stepping up to rekindle the board for the library. We have their funding. My recommendation to the council is very simple. If you agree to take over, that we close the cemetery, because we do not want to be in the business of selling cemetery plots and and having to maintain a map and all of that. I mean, I just don't think that's something that, one, we have the staffing or the wheelhouse or the ability to maintain. So I don't know, I don't know how much more information really we can provide other than what we've gotten from, I think her name is White, right, Miss
Yeah.
White? As
I
far
have
as
all their records, all their minutes, everything. She just brought it. left it and was gone. And I have the bank accounts. We already had one of them, and now I have the little operating account, which was, like I said, held at TD.
So the bank accounts are for maintenance, or is that people that prepay, did they
No, there's a
prepay their maintenance?
There's a checking account that they've been using for maintenance, and then there's a reserve.
But it would, like, so the funding though, like, in a cemetery, usually, you can prepay your maintenance for your lot.
Yeah, I don't know. Those records are not,
They don't
none
have
of
any
that
of
is
that.
included. It's literally a bunch of old ladies that kept track of stuff, and they had meetings and kept minutes. And there's not a lot of financial records. I have a plot map. I have a deed from the county. That's it. I mean, it's mostly just their organizational notes and records, but not a lot of finance stuff.
Have we talked to legal counsel about what our obligations are and options?
Yeah, we did. I'll have to dig those up. We reached, because this has been like at least 2 years in the making, maybe even 3, that when they first came to the city, and then we worked with them and we reached out to try and, because Tony was doing it originally, and reached out and tried to get them to kind of rebuild their association so that it wouldn't fall on the city. And we researched and confirmed that there were enough veterans in that essentially put the onus on the city for long-term maintenance should the the committee dissolve and there be no one to maintain the cemetery going forward. So, but it just delayed it essentially. We got another year or 2 out of it, and then last year she came in and just basically dumped everything and said, there's no one here. She's not, capable of continuing to do it based on her failing health, and here you go. So I'll have to look back into that, Tammy, but I know we have consulted previously with legal to see what our obligation is, and it mostly falls on the veteran factor that obligates us to it. So, so I mean, I don't know that we have realistically, I don't know that we have a lot of options as far as whether we accept it or deny it. I think the real question is what we do with it.
Exactly.
And I think
Exactly.
my recommendation would be that we close it and we just don't permit any more burials in that cemetery. And I think that's,
What about the people that own plots now? How do we administrate that?
Well, how does that, I mean, Mark, if,
The reason,
What's
in
your
my opinion,
recommendation?
that you don't know anything about it, because no one's ever asked me, no one's ever asked for that plot. Bill and I came in and talked with Glenn last summer sometime about it. But it just went on and on. I think your recommendation to close it is short-sighted as all outdoors, with all due respect. You have people that own plots there that they plan on being buried there, or they plan on burying mom and dad or Grammy and Grampy there. And for the city just to say, we don't give a damn, we're just gonna close it, is just so short-sighted.
What do you
It doesn't take a
suggest?
hell of a lot to maintain it. The guy that mows it now, last year and this year, charges $600 a mow. That's cheap. That is just cheap. I don't know how much money total there is.
A little under 40
well,
probably.
closing it doesn't mean not maintaining it, though. I mean, closing it means not, you have to allow the people that have bought the plots, they have to have burials, but
What
just to not
happens
sell
then?
anymore.
There are no records kept. And at some point, people, they wanna know where mom and dad are buried, 50 years from now or whatever. And if you have a cemetery where no records are kept, or that is maintained but closed, wink, wink, nod, nod, they're gonna step over that chain, and they're gonna go bury on their family lot. And what's gonna happen, they're going to be infringing on the lot next to them, or they're gonna be burying on top of somebody else. It isn't.
Well, that's not, I mean, we've got all kinds of closed cemeteries around here that we don't have that problem with,
Right,
that the city maintains.
that's correct, but that, for instance, the one behind the Congo Church, that hasn't been open to burials for,
Yeah, we got Winkenpaw Road, we got Bayside Road, we got 4 of them that we maintain.
the, one on the Bayside Road. If it's the same one I'm thinking of, that's still open.
No, what's the one, Tammy? We got 4 of them that we maintain that we always have to.
After, Nicolin? Isn't there one on
Oh, Nicolin.
No,
It's an
Nicolin
association.
is private.
I know that there's a small one out, way out the Buxton Road on the Happy Town.
But you
that's-
can't just bury someone in a lot that you don't own.
Tell the people that, who own a lot there, and if there's no one there, I'm out in Woodline all the time, people call me and say, you know, I gotta bury dear old dad, can you go mark that lot for me? Sure. We have just a little orange, pink flags, whatever they have.
Yeah, but that's ones they own, right?
Yes.
Yes, what I'm saying, we can't, I agree, if the person owns a lot, we can't say you can't bury someone there anymore. That's not right. We have to have those records and allow those burials. And 99 times out of 100, those burials are done by some
Funeral
undertaker in a funeral home anyway.
Who called the sexton?
Yeah.
Jordan's calls me all the time.
I know, but she said that you would be sexton of this.
I'm the sexton of Woodbine.
Right, so we need a sexton for Juniper.
And I said I would do this.
Okay. So when we're saying close it, you don't mean close
No,
them all up.
I just mean don't
Not sell
sell
any
any
more lots.
additional plots.
Right.
So the plots that exist, which we do have a pretty good map, if there are families that own plots that want to do burials, that we would have to accommodate those. But what I'm
Exactly.
saying is I don't want to continue to sell plots because my understanding from my conversation with Christina is that there's a whole additional like acre or more piece of land that could entirely be additional burial plots, and I don't think,
Which is income for maintenance.
I agree and understand that, but I just don't think that that's something, in my opinion, and I guess in a few months, my opinion won't matter, but I just don't think that that's something that the city wants to get into long-term, trying to maintain and sell burial plots for the cemetery, but
I would
again,
so
that's just
agree.
my
And
opinion.
that comes down to the sexton.
Mhm.
It isn't a thing of, you know, calling a counselor or calling a city manager or a clerk out front, saying, hey, so-and-so has died, I need to buy a burial plot. It's, you know, call the sexton, yeah, you know, lot 1, 2, 3, 4 is available, and they'll sell you that one. That way records are kept. It's, one of the important things is not so much selling the lot, but keeping records of everything.
Mhm.
And maintaining income for the perpetual endowment.
Yeah,
And that's what do we have a perpetual endowment on those others?
We have a reserve of 30,000, so I would assume that is what that money is for. It's just, it's a little more than that, plus the operating account, so.
you know, I wanna say Juniper got mowed 4 times? maybe
Labor Day,
5.
I think, is the last time.
But,
I think Labor Day was the last time, right around that time.
but it's an active cemetery. It isn't, you know, one of those things where you get a burial or 2 a year.
Yeah, I've got 3 people waiting for
Yeah.
direction right now, and I just,
Well, I mean, we can't give them direction, we don't own it.
I know, that's why I'm not giving them any. That's why I
So they have
wanted this.
corpses that they need to bury?
I think they're urns, so they,
You know, the only thing, like I told Tammy this morning, the only thing that I would ask in return, just pay me mileage. If I have to run out there and, you know, put out flags for a burial, okay, whatever the rate is on mileage. But it's,
I don't think that that's fair either, though. I mean, if you've got to keep records and have that responsibility, because if something happens, Mark, I mean, you could be, Mark keeps the record, so, and someone says, well, that's my lot, and they're like, nope, I bought that lot, that happens.
It happens in any cemetery, though.
Absolutely, that's what I mean, you shouldn't be just mileage, I mean, that should be a position of
It's
responsibility.
happened once out the Woodbine. Last year, somebody called and said, hey, I think there's a burial on my lot. Well, there was. Bill had double sold it. He didn't write it down, and it was a comedy of errors. The people were fine. Well, what else you got available? Well, we're going, over there. Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, it's a responsibility that, personally, I think that someone should be paid for. If you're gonna take those records, not the money, but the records, and you're gonna make sure and that everything is fine for what we have now, and then we got resell, and if you resell, that makes the cemetery larger, and there's more maintenance too, but.
I
Just
I
think
think
that-
rather than close it, give it a will for 5 years and 3 years, whatever number you want, and see how it goes. Something tells me that if it's closed, there's gonna be a lot of blowback.
Oh, it won't be until someone wants a plot there. They're not even gonna know that because we're not gonna close it
There's already people that want to buy plots
to the
there.
people.
Then I'd be
Well,
like,
my
well,
answer to
maybe
them
you
would-
could do an association.
Form an association.
Yeah,
if you have
association,
the
exactly.
desire
That
to be
would
buried
That
there.
would be the best.
Absolutely.
There's no question about it. But if there's no one that has the drive to form an association and do the maintenance, and do the sexton, so on and so forth, there are some stones out there, 3, I believe, that are in need of repair. Joe Ferranini, the guy that the city hires to do behind the Congo Church, would have those done in a day. So it isn't just mowing. Sometimes a stone, an old stone will, it just breaks, the wind gets to it, or whatever. And,
So-
you should do those.
So here's the other thing about keeping it open. And I know this is gonna sound cynical, I can be. But if we do this and then we keep it open and we take it over and do the burials, what's gonna prevent other associations from saying, you know what? We don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to keep these records. We can just give it to the city and then they'll just take over the cemetery.
Because your other associations are active.
Now, so was Juniper a few years ago.
Yeah.
So that's in Nicolin. That could happen there. That's the only thing, I mean, it just isn't, I understand what's happened to this poor woman, and I understand, but for not having anybody else to step up, this population's getting older, and that could happen more and more, and that's another whole thing down the road, but,
So
And-
rather than.
So shouldn't we be proactive and figure out a strategy or test out some strategies on this small cemetery-ish, small-ish cemetery? Because it's not gonna go away.
That's
well,
what
it
I'm
isn't gonna
thinking.
go away, but,
Rather than just say, well, what if, this happens or that happens. Take it and try it for 18 months, a year, whatever number you want. You don't know until you try.
But once we own it, we own it. How do we
Exactly.
give it back to?
I mean, we can always close it later
Yeah.
on, I see what he's saying, but, I mean, as long as there's a sexton, but it needs, I mean, what if, you know what, so, this is a terrible thing to say, but what if something happens to you?
What if I go kiss the front end of a Mack truck
Yeah.
Right,
at 50 miles an hour?
but then we're gonna have to find another sexton,
Okay, that isn't,
not like everybody knows how to do that, but, I don't know.
it isn't rocket science.
As long as there is, jeepers, I don't know, I had to find my father's plot, and it was a bugger of a time, making sure that we knew exactly how it was and having it.
Where's he buried?
Lemoyne.
Oh. well,
He's actually not buried yet, because
yeah,
long-
I don't know
waiting for my
anything
mother.
about their cemeteries.
but, I don't know. As long as there's a plan for Monday night, and that we can say that you're going to take it over.
I'll be here at the meeting, when it comes up.
All right. Because the last thing I want to do is stand up there and have someone say, I don't know what we're going to do, and have
And
this.
if I can convince Bill Clark to, put off his 7:30 bedtime, for an hour, then, I'll try to get him here too.
Where is it on the agenda?
At the end.
Yeah,
It is.
All right,
16,
yeah.
I think.
It's not a terribly lengthy agenda, though. There's not a lot of
There's not a lot of
long
substance to
stuff,
it.
yeah. And so
I
it
mean,
should
if you
move
wanna
fairly
put it
quickly.
Ahead of the meeting, have at it, just let me know.
No, we have to add something to the meeting at the end already, so. I just want to make sure that we're prepared for this discussion.
And what our options
And what our options
and what
are.
that looks like for each option is what I'm interested in seeing.
Me too.
Yep, so. Close, just let it stay where it's at and just city do nothing. I mean, there's just, yeah.
I think you really have two options. You only have two options. You either, you take it over, which I think that's a foregone conclusion. I think we have to do that. I don't think we have much of an option there. But your two options are you close it, don't sell any more plots, allow the, whoever currently owns plots to complete their burials there, continue the maintenance based on the reserve that you have, and eventually, with the understanding that eventually it will fall on the taxpayers, because that money's not gonna last forever, to do continued maintenance on that cemetery. Or option B is to, through the good graces of Mr. Blanchett, continue to utilize it as an active cemetery and sell plots and bring in revenue that will be able to prolong, at least for a while, the resource that you have to maintain the cemetery.
I don't know what they get for, what they were getting for prices there.
We have that information,
Yeah,
Christina
I have
mentioned
all
it.
that.
It's not a lot.
but-
When we talked this past summer with Christina, we had that information, and you said that it was pretty cheap comparatively, so.
I mean, a single lot out to Woodbine is 900.
I think they're 8. I think they're 8
Half
at
lot is
Juniper.
35, and full lot, 20 by 20 lot is 6,000.
Wow.
But, on a single lot, if it's ashes, you can get up to 3. Oh, and the other thing, if you keep it open just, for current owners, you'd be amazed what people want to put their monuments. And you have to, the monuments have to go in a certain spot so that it can be mowed. If you have to go in and out of each and every stone, you aren't gonna get anyone to mow it.
Yeah.
That's-
So this is the information that worries me, that if you were going to do it, and I do think it should be a paid position, if you were going to do that and make sure that that all happens, and there's a person that, I am more than comfortable, I just want to make sure that there's a plan, that we have a person that's going to oversee that cemetery, that knows what they're doing, and understands the plots and all of that stuff that you're just talking about, and is going to be coming to the council and saying, we need some money because we need to fix these stones before the public comes and says, you know what, these stones look terrible, and these are veterans, and, there's just so much that needs to be taken, as you know, with Woodbine. There's so much that needs to be done to oversee a cemetery, even a closed cemetery, that, that's still active. It's closed, but it's active. It's a lot, and there needs to be someone that's in charge of it, and it can't, city employees, it's just another thing. It needs someone that's taking care of it, a sexton.
I agree. Lord knows I love the clerks out front. The last thing they want is to be selling.
Well, yeah, especially if you don't know anything about what that means, or what it takes, or,
Where it is.
where it is, exactly, right?
Selling great plots.
Yeah, that's why if we come to the council with this, there's gotta be a plan, and like Tammy said, options, and what those options mean and cost, and,
Can we,
it's coming up.
this sounds kind of weird, out of the box, can we advertise that, or put some post or something out there that says, hey, we're looking for some residents to create an association. We have the funds to create the association to help, you know, oversight of this particular lot, or, I'm just trying to
Yeah, no.
take it off the city a little bit,
I
but.
would think that there are some families,
Right.
Maddox, Jordans, up in that neck of the woods.
Yeah, that, they may not know this is an issue right now, so, you know, if it comes to, it's like, hey, how come nobody asked us, or, I just wonder if we need to do some more public outreach to let people know that this is happening. That's just my 2 cents.
Cold. I'm not leaving, I'm cold.
Tammy's leaving.
No, I was just looking at the time.
I just have a couple more things too, but, thank you for offering to be the sexton and take that over, Mark, that's really great. As far as, whoops, I don't need that. So, I'm still waiting for the list of, counselors to tell me what committees they want to be on. But I have 2 that would like to be on the finance committee, but 7:15 is too early. So, the discussion is, should we change this to 7:45 or 8 o'clock, and is it possible?
Is it possible?
That's up to you. We're here, so.
Well, if you're, so.
You're
Yeah,
retired.
I am appointed,
Oh, okay.
absolutely,
All right.
there's no doubt
Okay.
about it. You have no choice,
oh,
I put
okay.
you down already.
All right,
It's fine with me, I mean, I have
Sent you a text.
chamber meetings and things like that, it's just with you, you would just have to have your staff know that you're,
probably gonna be closer to 10 than I get there than 9.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. If you're comfortable with that, then fine.
because I do think, if Patrick's still interested in it, it is good to have a newer counselor, at least one of them participate, because there is these kind of discussions, and you just learn so much on these. We don't, make, as you know, we don't make decisions, but we do have discussions monetarily, and there's a lot, I'm hoping this year we're going to get our debt service lists and our a real comprehensive, capital plan, and get that stuff now.
Heat back on, it's freezing in here.
It is freezing in here.
Can you not hear? Do we need to speak louder?
Oh, no,
Oh, you were hot?
yeah, I was
Oh.
hot,
Oh, really?
which is rare.
It's cold. And so I just think it would be good, for the future. And actually, Steve O'Halloran's interested in being on it, so I think that's.
And
good.
that would be an opportunity if we did want to record it, you would have staff here too, we wouldn't have to worry about
Yeah, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock,
Yeah, yeah. And staff wouldn't have to come in super early in order
Right.
to present to us either.
Okay.
Is that okay? So 7:45 or 8?
8 probably,
Okay.
because I know, is he taking his child to school?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's some traffic issues there in
Okay.
too, so.
I'll send that, because I have to send a reminder email for the committees, so if that's okay. I mean, I know you guys are here anyway, but it doesn't interfere with
Does that help
anything
you
else.
guys?
Gives me more sleep, so it's fine by me.
All right.
I won't know what to do.
I'll come down early,
I'll-
keep you company.
I would,
We'll work on cemeteries.
Is that gonna affect any other meetings in here?
That's what I was
No,
wondering.
okay,
Fridays are,
pretty light.
yeah.
So we'll just have to change the advertisement
Yep.
from
Make sure that
7:15 to
gets-
8 AM.
Starting next week?
Yeah.
We won't have
Oh, right.
finance next week, so
We
the
won't have it next week,
December
so it'll be-
1st.
Oh, that's right, December 1st.
No,
Yeah, Friday, December 1st.
no, we have another week. Oh, yeah, it is, yeah, that is, it. Holy crap.
Next week's
Oh my
Thanksgiving.
God.
I know.
there's a calendar on the phone, Tammy.
Poshmark.
It is December 1st.
No
I'm
comments from the
looking.
peanut gallery over there.
So, all right. Finance report, sorry.
Yay. Okay, capital improvement plan. So we just finished, I now have water, wastewater, and roads done. So we spent some time, Adam and I, doing what's it called? You know, you rate the roads, you grade the roads. So we did that for
Oh.
all the roads in the city. And so that piece of it is done. And now I'm dropping in some of the money, or some of the pro-formed money that Lisa had put in before she left into her plan. So that's, my goal is to have that done for budget, so that you guys have that to look at, like a big comprehensive look at all the assets of the city and the state that they are in.
Is it possible to have some of it come little by little to finance?
Yeah.
That would be great. Like, I'd love to see the local roads and what
Yeah.
the plan is for that.
Yeah, you'll
It's a-
have all of that.
Okay. I mean, before budget, like, as you get it done.
Yeah, it's actually
pieces.
gonna be online. It's gonna be in a big presentation online, so you can look at it
Oh, okay.
anytime you want. If you
Yep.
get up at 1 a.m. and you just gotta know, you can go online and look at it.
Well, no, I'm probably not going to do that because I have a job that does that to me already. No, but so like, can we have an agenda item that talks about capital improvement?
Yeah.
Where we are and where you are, and you can show us on the agenda? Okay.
For
I'm pretty, that was. the-
finance or
For
for
finance.
council?
For finance, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the biggest project was roads, because roads hadn't been done in a long time.
Yeah.
So that's the CIP. The next thing is the Cassell integration. So we took the chart of accounts from 2,500 accounts to about 400. Ron's currently working with Paychex to do the integration for Paychex, because some of the old accounts in payroll here were flipped. Anyway, he's fixing it, so that's good. And again, like I said, I'm prepping for budget for next year. I just did a new form for people that are requesting money from the city, so that you guys will have something a little more robust to look at. I'll send, I'm having Matt look it over for rec committee right now, and then I'll send it over to you to look at it and see if there's anything else that you want to add to it. It's still pretty modest, because I don't want you guys to get buried in paperwork of people looking for money. So we're going for some basic hits. And also to know that whoever's asking for money has thought about what they're gonna do with it, that they're not just getting money.
Yeah.
And
So
that
is this
we're
like
looking-
committees, or is it outside
Both.
agencies, or everything?
It's gonna be social service kind of things, it's gonna be rec, and then it's gonna be other.
Oh, cool.
So it'll have all of that. And then one of the things that we're asking for in the final section is if you had an award last year from the city, what'd you do with it? You know, tell us a little bit about how you used that money and how it benefited the city, and, you know, did you accomplish anything that hadn't been accomplished before for the city, for the residents of the city, or for some need that we have? So that, you know, that way
That's a great
we're kind
idea.
of inspecting our own expectations of what they're doing with the money, and kind of holding their feet to the fire for it. So that's something that we're doing right now. And good news, I figured out credit cards,
Oh, good.
all of them. So we're gonna start doing fiscal year '23 audit. I really, really wanted to figure that out, otherwise it was gonna be unbelievably expensive to pay the auditors to do that. So I took some time with the banks and went back and kind of did like a workflow to see if I could figure it out, and last week I figured it out. I was so excited. I came and
It's like,
jumped up and down
yes.
and blends up.
Those are always
It
great
has taken
feelings.
forever to figure out the credit card. We couldn't do wastewater because nobody could figure out where those payments were going, but I figured it.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. So I'll actually talk to you about that as
Okay.
soon as I get it all pulled back
Yep.
together, because now it's crazy. As far as Public Works, so right now I'm about to start, as soon as, I'm waiting for the final letter from Haley Ward so that I can get my money. The ward that Justine, or the letter that Justine gave me was not correct. She's the PE on the project. So I talked to Lisa, and circling back around to get a new letter so that we can get our money from DOT, which is what we're waiting for. Then the next step will be, I've compiled all the expenses of that project, all the projects that we have right now. We have files that have everything in them so that we can look at what we've spent money on, what meetings have been had, minutes, everything, like a regular project file. So I'm gonna do a reconciliation for Christian Ridge to see if we can ferret out some money for Red Bridge Road, because Adam's looking for money. So we think we might have some left over from that one. The next thing is we got our loan forgiveness for the CWSRF, so that is now gonna take off, and I think that's the new water treatment plant. I think that there's some amount of high pressure zone in there. I have a call into Brent to start moving forward, because I'm getting all kinds of paperwork. This is the last, loan that I requested to apply for. It was a couple months ago. So now it's come back around, so now
What's the
we're
loan
getting it.
forgiveness on it?
The loan forgiveness was what, like 5 something? I think it was like-
5,000?
No, 500.
Oh,
something.
okay.
Yeah, it's a big, this is a slightly different one. This is not the 8 million, this is something for clean water. It's part of the funding for the new water treatment plant. So it's a little bit confusing, and I haven't talked to Brent since probably the beginning of October, but I have calls into him, so I'm optimistic that I'm gonna talk to him. I'll make sure that I talk to him.
So do we need to text him?
I can text him.
Yep.
Yeah, tell him to call me. And then I'm just, one of the big kind of problems that I have is the Moore Center. The reimbursables that they were supposed to be paying us for have not been billed to them at all. Some of them have, but not all of them. And so I've given them half their money from budget, but I really need to get into this billing, because I think it's fairly significant. Like, they haven't been billed for phones at all, ever, which is supposedly something that they're supposed to get billed for. So if you hear from them, that's the holdup. This was a project that Christina was doing, and then she was gone, and then, so now it's back on me again. So, but I have a lot of other stuff, so I just want you to know that that's something that we have to look at, and kind of tying up these processes so that everybody knows what the expectation is. Everything's kind of like lore in the finance office. Hey, we're supposed to do this, but there's nowhere where that it says that, or it's just a matter of asking people. Yeah. So,
That lease is up in, what, May?
August.
August? Yeah. So we need to relook at that with them anyways, but I think that, from what I'm understanding with Matt, he is, much more ready to be, I'm trying to see how to say this. He is going, I think he's gonna be, working with the city, in a way that is different than it used to be previously. And I think he will be, if you come to him and tell
Yeah.
him that this is what's happened and we, owed all of this money, and, I think he'll be more open to the discussion. And the same thing with looking at that lease. And how that's all working right now. I think he's gonna be, much better to work with.
Good.
so I'm trying to get that, I'm looking at the lease and trying to figure out what has been done already, or what there's no records of it, so I'm not really sure what's been going on. But I do know that the leased phone piece of it has not been billed, so I'm gonna bill that, but it's significant, it's a couple of years.
The other thing that hasn't happened, that, my understanding is that, there was supposed to be money that came to the city for capital improvements from their rentals, when they rented out the place. And from what I understand, that has never,
No, that's never happened.
And they were
They're
supposed to come with a
provide
sh-
financials, and that's never happened.
Yeah,
So
so-
there's
Yeah.
a lot of.
a lot of that needs to
Lot of
be.
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that needs to be looked at. Okay. But I will tell you, the two pieces of that is, with the daycare issues that the city's having now, and with the closing of the Tiny Tykes, and, I think working with the Y on ensuring that they have that, daycare is gonna be crucial.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. That's a huge resource for the community that.
Absolutely. And that senior center is too. I was there, my mom goes there 2 days a week, and, the people that are there that utilize those services too, and the rides and the workout for their cardio. And then even my mom with her dementia, she goes 2 days a week for 3 hours, and it's this whole social time, and these people are all, it's just that's also an incredible service to the city. So, because there's no other place for that to happen. So, getting people out of their houses, so.
Slightly off topic, but keep in mind Monday night, when you're assigning committees, that we have contract negotiations. So you're gonna need to assign somebody. Typically, it's someone from the HR committee. I think in the past, that's been assigned to the negotiation team, but we have
Which
fire,
fire?
public works,
Oh, God,
which
they're
are
all doing
probably
it.
the two worst, so.
Yeah.
And I also just discovered that our, don't laugh, that's not nice, that our contract with Northern Light Medical Transport expires in June 30th, so that's also gonna have to be
So
negotiated.
like the emergency services committee.
And that's gonna be challenging because it's been, well, I mean, we have an ambulance now, but we don't have the capacity to do, all of the EMS for our community, so we're gonna have to contract with them, but we shouldn't be paying anywhere near what we've paid the last 3 years based on, one, their service that they've provided, and two, the fact that we've had to stand up an ambulance because they can't provide adequate service. So I think that whomever from the council is involved in that's gonna have to be,
Okay.
because that's gonna be challenging.
We must be bumping 90 grand a year now.
Oh, we're over 100. This is per capita.
Yeah, I know it's per capita.
Yeah, it's this year, this current fiscal year, it's over 100. I wanna say it's like 140. I'd have to look.
Good grief.
So when did you say that one's due, the Northern Light?
That expires June 30th. 'Cause it's
So
for-
that
for
negotiation needs to
fiscal year.
start pretty quickly then.
yeah.
Yeah.
So is it just fire and highway right now? Or is there
Yes.
another one? Is there
No,
wastewater too?
wastewater.
What about clerks?
Clerks are next year with police.
Okay.
And those are for the next fiscal year, right?
Well, the current contracts expire June 30th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we haven't gotten notice from any of the units yet requesting that we begin negotiations, but typically that won't happen until after the first of the year anyway. So.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna add that. I'll send out an email and,
But we didn't have any any contracts this year, and the previous counselor was Mark, that we did police 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, we did
And
police,
clerks.
fire, Clerks.
Yeah, we did all, but public.
Highway.
Right, but 2 years ago, we did police and clerks. You were the
Yes.
council
Yeah.
appointee. There's no contracts this past year, so we needed somebody new for
Okay.
negotiation.
okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
okay.
to steal your thunder, but that just popped
No
in my
thunder
head.
here.
Nope, I'm glad you told me that. So-
As far as the accounting goes, till I can find another accountant, Ron is gonna probably loan me one of his for a while just to help me. Once we're in Casell, I'm fine to keep the books, but I just wanna have someone else to close them every month, because I have a lot to do too. So, but it's not just abandoned, just so you know that.
Okay.
So they'll be doing that. And that will help us with integration to the new system too.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's it.
So as far as budget process goes,
That's what I was gonna ask.
we're gonna be sending the letter out to staff soon.
Next week.
Next week. I did speak at management team meeting last night, just to kind of give everybody a heads up that it's coming, so that they can start, if they haven't already, start working on their budgets. As always, the expectation will be little to no increases, to the extent possible.
When are you gonna have them due back from the staff?
Last year it was end of January, so probably be similar, some mid to end of January. To turn into finance and manager's office, and then we'll start our process. Our process last year was January. I mean, we took most of February working through between myself and finance, working through the budget, and then meeting with individual department heads to discuss their budget and potential cuts. And then I think we started meetings in March. So
What about-
ideally, if we can accelerate that, so we're starting meetings, budget meetings at the end of February, that would probably be best. As this year we were a little pressed towards the end, so.
Yeah, we've gotta have the school department too.
I have not had any conversations with them about their budget, so I'll probably
Yeah.
reach out to Amy and just kind of plant the seed, and hopefully they're working on it.
Yeah, and it'd be good if she can come to us too and kind of give us heads up periodically. And we need a clear definition of what, before we set these workshops, of what our timeline is for the elections. Because that got kind of a little
Oh,
messed up, I
yeah.
think, and
For the school,
for the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can work that budget workshop around that, so that we're not hurrying in the end.
that's a good point. I will reach out to her. And so a new twist and challenge to the budget this year, aside from the financial component, is going to be Cassell. So we're going to be working the budget through Munis in the sense for comparison's sake, right? So in order to know what percentage increase we have per department, we're going to have to work that through Munis. But our plan is to be, for Cassell to be implemented well before July 1. So at some point, and I don't know how much that will impact the actual council, but just understand that behind the scenes, there's going to be mixing of Munis and Cassell software as we're working through the budget. So, because we're gonna be, unless something goes really sideways, next fiscal year, we're gonna be operating exclusively in Cassell. So,
Yes.
but in the meantime, the budget process is gonna have to, function through Munis, because we're not there yet with Cassell to be able to do that, so.
Would it also be, I would like to see, so when we got the budget last year, it was budgeted for every year. If we could see what we're asking for budget for what, and then what was budgeted
Actuals.
last year, and then using actuals, that would be extremely helpful.
Yeah,
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
The problem is I don't have very good books right now. I just don't. And until 23 reconciliation is done,
Well, you've
it's a
got-
little bit of a guessing game. 24 is probably not terrible, but we had some bad mapping in Munis, which was part
Yeah.
of the underlying problem with Munis. And then there was also bad mapping between Trio and Munis.
Well,
So all that-
Ron said that he was gonna have 23 done quickly. I mean, so you could have the actuals in there by the time we do March. You should.
Oh.
Waiting to talk to him about when we're gonna do that. That's why I took on the credit card mess, because that was the biggest
Yeah.
bottleneck of all of it.
I mean, we should,
So you have actuals for
we
22
should
on
have
that.
actuals for 22, yeah.
So we need budgeted for 24, because you're not gonna have that.
Right.
And then you should have you'll have 22 and back in 23.
Hopefully 23.
Hopefully, so,
Yeah, it's usually 2 years of actuals, 2 years of budget, so.
Yeah.
So, there's some issues with 23, so I don't want you to go down the primrose path here. There's a lot of accounting issues with 23. Because May was working through those before she left, but she made it really clear to me that she wasn't finished and that we're gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah. Ron also gave us the name of an individual, I must have it on my pad in my office, that maybe we may be able to hire for some accounting work, but that individual won't be available until February, so. So Ron and his crew is kind of gonna lend us a hand And then hopefully in February, this individual will be able to hire, assuming we don't have an accountant by then, but I don't think the odds are real great that we will, to be able to do a lot of that work outside of Ron's crew, so that hopefully we can not only have the FY '23 audit done in a timely fashion, but also get FY '24, a lot of what, what Ann is talking about with FY '24, with reconciliations and accounting work, have that done by this outside resource, so.
That'd be good if you even had two people to kind of just knock
I feel
it-
good
knock
about
it out.
24 year-to-date,
Good.
but 23, we don't. So I'm gonna try to head it off at the pass and get as many things that are amorphous and bizarre out of the way, so that.
chat, because it's on my computer, I can do whatever you need.
That's everything.
Let me
That's
get,
it. I will stop the recording.
I'll definitely need your help with wastewater, but now I know where the money is and where it came from, or where it went.
Yep, or just start giving me accounts so I can sign all of the